But I made our cuts off camera, and we're going to go ahead together with the assembly. So the pieces that we cut are going to be our short pieces that join our 90-degree angle elbows with each other so that our pipes can connect. And then we have some offcuts here. One is going to be for the downspout of the water that's flowing out of the pipes, and the other is going to be a downspout that's bringing water in through your pump. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I'm going to put these aside for now. These two pieces are important because they're going to connect to the reducers on the end to help us get water from the system to whatever type of container that we're using. I use the HDX buckets from Home Depot because they are food safe, and I like to keep them a little bit away from the system so that the bucket itself, if they're ever not covered, the lights aren't getting into the water, because that can create problems for you that if you have questions about, we can cover in a text, email, message, or another video. So we're also going to set these aside. So the first thing we want to do right now is get these off. And this is why we use hot glue, because it's easy to get off, it's strong, but it's also easy to clean up. It just peels right off. So that's why we use hot glue. We're going to take those off. Oh, that one's a little hard. And so before we get going with any type of assembly, we want to make sure we're doing the cleanup. So what that looks like is you're going to take your sandpaper. I got 120 grit right here. 80 grit would probably work best. And what you want to do is just simply rub that in and get all those loose shavings from where you cut and drilled. And you're going to smooth those down. You want to smooth that out so you can see the difference of where it was sanded to where it wasn't, because you don't want that stuff falling back into the system. After you finish sanding, just make sure you got all that stuff out of there. You'll want to clean this out, run it to a sink or some kind of use wire brush or something to make sure you get all the PVC shavings out of there, because again, that stuff, you don't want it floating around in your system. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're just going to do what's called a dry fit. You want to make sure that all your measurements were correct, particularly if you're doing more than 2. If you're doing 4 or 5 or 6 of these like I have, you want to make sure that all your measurements are correct so that the water's flowing evenly throughout your system and that nothing's out of whack. Because if that happens, if you have things offset, what that does is it leaves space for gaps and leaks, and then you'll have a problem. Particularly if you got neighbors that live below you, you don't want any causing any leaks for anybody's property. That wouldn't be good. So we're going to do a dry fit. And so you're going to take your 2 ends, the thicker pieces of PVC that you purchased, and you're going to grab all of your, for this particular design, you're going to grab your reducers. And you're going to put them on. What you're going to do with your reducers, you're going to place them on the ends. You'll do that to both pipes. Next, you're going to take 2 of your elbows, and you want to put the street side in, meaning the piece without the lip. So look at the 2 ends. The thinner side will go into your reducer. So when you put these in, 2 of them will face each other, and 2 of them will be put on later because they're going to face down. All right. So you're going to grab your short piece of the PVC that's thinner of the 2 sizes that you purchased. And you're going to get that in there. And again, this is just a dry fit, so you don't want to put it on too tight because you're going to have to take it apart again. All right. So you have those 2 in there. So what you're going to do on your opposite end is you want to get everything that's going to take the PVC out, water out rather, and then bring the water in. So you'll bring those 2 in. And if this is happening while you're constructing it, don't worry. Again, you're going to seal that up, and we're going to talk about what that looks like in just a moment. Okay, so you have that in, and that's when you're going to use your second 2 streets, and they're going to face downward. This time you're going to put the thick side up because it's going directly onto the PVC. And that's going to face down. And once we take it off, you're going to have this end is going to go into it, and the same into your bucket, receptacle, whatever you're going to be using as your reservoir. But then we're going to take it apart. That was just a dry fit. We wanted to make sure everything fit okay. And if it does, you move on to this next step, which comes down again, like most of this, to preference and how you want to go about it. So at this point, if you make sure everything fits and it's to your liking, what you're going to want to do is use what's called PVC glue or PVC cement, depending on what brand you buy and where you get it from. And some of them have an all-in-one applicator. It comes with a brush or something that you can put on there. And you're just going to do just the bits that the lips go over. And what that's going to do is create a bond that's also going to help prevent some leakage. Now, I don't like to use PVC cement. I'm not a professional with this, but I don't like to use the PVC glue or the PVC cement. Some people may tell you to use it. I prefer to use things like sealant tapes and these waterproof tapes here, because what I want to be able to do at any given point is, say I make a mistake or something gets clogged, I want to be able to take this thing apart without having to break anything or damage it so that I can reuse it later. So I don't want to create any permanent bonds, or even if I need to clean it at some point. So that's why I like to use the tapes. But if you get these things and your measurements are good, I've experienced with the ones that I've built that as long as the measurements are good and equal and you're creating nice and tight joints here, that there shouldn't be any problems. If you have some type of concern about using the different types of ends, I would also recommend that you can get regular 90-degree elbows. So the regular 90-degree elbows are this thicker side on both ends. And the only difference in using those that you would do instead of using the street style is that you would cut smaller pieces off your thinner pipe and put it between the lip and the reducer. So you would have it like that. It doesn't have to be that long instead, and so that they'd meet out that way. And that works well. That's actually how I have the one upstairs, but either of these ways work. What you really want to do is try to use what you have, which is why I have these. But you can use the two-lip style as well for your reducers. So hopefully you found that this was helpful. If not, that's all right too. But hopefully you found that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, like I said, send me a message. And if I can't answer it, maybe I can direct you to some place that can. In terms of your reservoir, like I said, I use the HDX bucket. Whatever you decide to use, you just want to make sure it's food safe. And the way you can look at to see it's food safe, I'll put in the description the marking that you want to see on the bottom in that little recycling symbol, so that you know that it's food safe, because you don't want it leaching things into your water that's going to get passed on to the plants and then passed on to you when you go to consume your plants. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. Hope you guys have a blessed day and things work out in these uncertain times, but we can continue to cling to our faith as we find these little projects to keep ourselves busy, that we still remember that we're also a work in progress. You guys have a blessed day.